The first time I saw the knife, I was 7 years old. It was lying on my mother's bedroom floor. Black handle, blade that cut the light in a way that ordinary blades do not, and beside it a gown, dark, folded, waiting. I had seen both of them before. The night before, I had traveled somewhere in my sleep, a place I had never been, a place no child should ever be. And in that place, I had been given those two things, the gown and the knife. I had been told what they were for, what I was expected to do with them. And when I woke up and told my mother about it, when I said, "Mama, I had a strange dream. There was a place, and they gave me a knife and a gown," she did not look surprised. She looked at me the way a person looks when they have been waiting for something for a very long time. She said, "That was not a dream." She said, "Come with me." And she took me to her bedroom, and there they were. Everything I had seen in that place, physically present in this world, in my mother's room, in the home where I was born. My name is Gideon Mulenga Kabila. I was born into the kingdom of darkness before I took my first breath, and this is my testimony. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest of this story. I did not go looking for darkness. Darkness was waiting for me when I arrived. My mother came from a Satanist family, not someone who had dabbled in the occult, not someone who had made a bad decision as a young person and got entangled in something they did not understand. My mother was born into a lineage that had made its covenant with the devil across generations. It was her inheritance, and she intended it to be mine. I was born in Zambia, a country of red earth and copper mines, of vast sky and deep forests, of a people who carry both the warmth of Africa and the weight of what lives in its spiritual shadows. Zambia is a Christian nation. It was declared so officially. Churches on every corner, praises songs in the morning air, the name of Jesus on the lips of millions. And underneath all of that, a world that most of those millions have never seen and never want to see. I grew up as an ordinary child on the surface, school, friends, the rhythms of daily life that every Zambian child knows. But underneath the surface of my ordinary childhood, something was being built, a parallel life, a second world, a claim on my soul that had been registered before I was old enough to speak. My mother never hid what she was, not from me. That is the thing I find hardest to explain to people who ask about my childhood. She did not deceive me the way the enemy usually deceives his recruits. She told me plainly. She told me who she was, what she belonged to, and what she expected of me. She said, "You belong to another world," not as a threat, as a statement of fact. The way you might tell a child that they come from a particular village, a particular family, a particular heritage. This is where you are from, and this is what you are. I was too young to question it, too young to resist it, too young to understand that what was being claimed over my life was not a heritage to be proud of, but a prison being built around me brick by brick. And then came the night of my 7th birthday. It was midnight. I know it was midnight because that is when it always happens. The kingdom of darkness does not operate in daylight. It moves in the hours when the world is asleep and the natural defenses of a household are down. Midnight, the hour between one day and the next, the hour that belongs to neither. I was in my bed, asleep, or I thought I was asleep. Then I heard voices, not loud, not dramatic, whispers, coming from outside the window, soft and insistent, like water finding its way through cracks in a wall. I could not make out the words, but I could feel the intention in them. Something was being called, something was being summoned. Then the room changed. I say changed because I have no better word for it. The darkness in the room became a different kind of darkness, not the absence of light. That is ordinary darkness. The darkness of night, the darkness you have known since childhood. This was a presence, a weight, a living thing filling the space from floor to ceiling. And then I saw him, a figure, dark, enormous, the kind of enormous that does not fit naturally inside a room, tall in a way that made the walls seem to lean away from him, moving toward my bed with a slowness that was more frightening than speed would have been. Because speed can be escaped, that slowness said, "I am not rushing. You are not going anywhere." He stood at the edge of my bed and he spoke. He said, "It is time to go to another world." I want to tell you that I resisted. I want to tell you that even at 7 years old, something in me fought back. But I cannot tell you that because it would not be true. I was a child, a small child lying in his bed at midnight, facing something that should not exist. There was no resistance in me. There was only the paralysis of absolute terror. He said, "You do not need transport. This is a spiritual world. Give me your hands." I gave him my hands and I disappeared. One moment I was in my bed in Zambia. The next moment I was somewhere else entirely. I use the word somewhere carefully because this place had a geography. It had dimensions, it had structures, it had inhabitants, but it did not follow the rules of any place on the surface of this earth. It was underground. I knew that without being told. The weight of what was above it was something you could feel. And yet it was lit, electrically lit, not by sunlight, not by fire, but by a cold hard light that came from everywhere and nowhere, the kind of light that reveals without warming. I looked around me. There were people or things that looked like people, moving with purpose, organized, each one knowing their role, their place, their function in whatever machinery this place was running. And then the interviews began. That is the word I use for it, interviews, because that is what it felt like. A formal process, questions asked, conditions stated, a covenant being drawn up and explained to me with the bureaucratic efficiency of something that had been done many times before. They told me who they were, they told me what they wanted from me, they told me what I would receive in return: power, protection, rank, a place in a hierarchy that extended far beyond anything the surface world could offer. And then they told me the cost. I was 7 years old. I did not fully understand the document I was signing. I did not fully understand the implications of what I was agreeing to. But I nodded. I agreed. I made the covenant. A gown was placed on my shoulders, dark, heavy in a way that had nothing to do with its physical weight. A knife was placed in my hands, black handle, a blade that felt warm even though no flame had touched it. And they said, "The knife is for sacrifices. Learn to use it well." Then I was back in my bed, back in my room, back in the ordinary darkness of a Zambian night. I lay there for a long moment. Then I got up and went to my mother's room. I told her about the dream. She looked at me and she said, "That was not a dream. Come. She took me to her bedroom, and there on the floor of my mother's room were the gown and the knife, exactly as I had seen them in that other place, physical, real, present in this world. Everything I had experienced in that underground place had crossed over into this one. I stood in my mother's bedroom at 7 years old, and I looked at a black knife on the floor. And my mother said, "Those things are yours. That is where I belong. And now it is where you belong too." And then she said the words that would define the next years of my life. She said, "Now I will teach you how to kill." What my mother taught me over the years that followed, I will not lay out step by step, not because I am protecting you from the truth, but because some knowledge described in too much detail opens doors that should stay closed. What I will tell you is this: she was a thorough teacher, patient, systematic. She did not rush my education. She understood that what she was building in me needed to be built carefully if it was going to last. She taught me the hierarchy of the kingdom, who sat above whom, what each rank required and what each rank received. She taught me the commandments because, yes, the kingdom of darkness has commandments, its own laws, its own code of conduct that agents are required to follow as strictly as any soldier follows military protocol. She taught me how to travel in the spirit, how to leave my body and move through the world in a form that was invincible to ordinary human perception, how to be present in a room without anyone knowing I was there, how to observe, to collect intelligence, to execute assignments without leaving evidence that could be traced back to me in the natural world. She taught me the knife. I will say only this about the knife: it was never used for anything that resembled what a knife is used for in an ordinary kitchen or an ordinary life. Every use of it was purposeful. Every use of it was recorded. Every use of it moved me upward in the hierarchy of the kingdom, because that is how rank works in the kingdom of darkness. You advance by what you sacrifice. The more you give, the higher you go. The more you destroy, the more power you receive. It is a system of terrible mathematics. Everything gained is paid for with someone else's loss. Every promotion is funded by someone else's suffering. By the time I was a young man, I had sacrificed 80 people. I say that number, 80, and I need you to sit with it. Not statistics, not abstractions. 80 human beings whose destinies were ended or altered by my hand, by my assignments, by the dark education my mother had given me, and the covenant I had made as a 7-year-old child in a place I had been taken to without my full understanding. 80. And for each one, I rose higher. Until the day came when I was appointed junior assistant to the master for the eastern, central, and southern regions of Africa. I was no longer a student. I was an official, an administrator of darkness with a territory that covered 3 regions of a continent. And I had a degree to prove it from the voodoo school of witchcrafts.
Yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Let me tell you about the world beneath. Because one of my assignments in the kingdom was education, and part of what I was educated in was a thorough understanding of how the underground world was organized and what it produced. This knowledge was not given to entry-level agents. It came with rank and I want you to have it. The underground world has factories, not metaphorical factories, physical structures, or at least structures that operate according to the same logic as physical factories, with production lines, with inputs and outputs, with products that leave the factory floor and enter the world above. What goes in? Human beings, bodies, blood, the raw material of human life extracted through sacrifice, through accident, through the countless ways the kingdom collects what it needs from the surface world. What comes out? Consumer goods. I need you to hear that carefully. The products of those factories are not kept underground. They are distributed. They enter the market. They sit on shelves in shops. They are worn on bodies, eaten at tables, given as gifts, clothing, food, items that look entirely ordinary and arrive in the hands of their buyers with no visible indication of what they contain or where they came from. The purpose of distributing these products is not merely financial, it is initiatory. Every person who receives certain products produced in those factories is touched by a connection to the kingdom, whether they know it or not. A thread is created, an opening is made. The underground world also has universities, schools, institutions of learning with their own curriculum, their own degrees, their own graduation ceremonies. I attended these schools. I received my education there. The Voodoo School of Witchcraft was one of them, not a name I invented, not a dramatic label applied later. That was its actual name, and the degree it awarded was a physical document that I carried with me into the world above. A document that would eventually cost me everything, but I will tell you about that in episode 2. I have told you today how I entered the kingdom of darkness. I have told you about the midnight visitor, the soul travel, the covenant made before I was old enough to understand what a covenant was, the mother who taught me to kill, the knife that traveled between worlds. But there is something I have not told you yet, something that happened at a conference, a religious conference, a gathering of Christians that I was sent to disrupt, a routine assignment, something I had done many times before without incident. But this time, I dropped my papers. Just like that, an accident that was not an accident. Papers scattered across the floor of a conference hall, and among them, my degree from the Voodoo School of Witchcraft, picked up by a pastor who could read what was written on it. And in that moment, a moment so small, so seemingly accidental, everything changed. I did not know it yet, but that dropped degree was the beginning of the end of my life in darkness and the beginning of something else entirely. Episode 2 is coming. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications, because the next part of this story, what happened after those papers hit the floor, will show you something about God that no sermon has ever shown you as clearly. He can use the smallest accident to end the greatest darkness. Thank you very much for being around. I will see you in episode 2. Don't fail to subscribe, share, and put down your comment in the comments area. I want to read your opinion. God bless you.